So most of my wardrobe is either thrifted or I create it. But this dress here has been following me around on the internet. It pops up in all of my feeds everywhere. And I was so intrigued by it because it has so many sewing details in it. And it was only $38. What? So I ordered it so that way we can go over it and explore this dress and see what kind of techniques and finishes are in it. Because really, how could they make this for just $38? And it's made out of a cotton denim, no synthetics. So we're gonna go over all the different sewing techniques from head to toe on this dress. And then at the end, we are gonna go over what this dress should actually cost. Will the construction on this dress be as good as it looks? Let's find out. Real quick, before we start, if you're enjoying Sewing Anastasia, make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a lot. And if you want to learn more about sewing, well, make sure you check out my online classes and my in-person classes. Links are down below in the description. So first, I'm going to go over all the different types of techniques used to create this dress, and then I'm going to flip it inside out. We're going to take a look at all the different types of seams and stitches they used. So let's go from top to bottom on all the techniques. So starting at the top here, they had to create this mandarin collar, and then they had to create this 3-piece bow, and then they had to create covered buttons. And the next technique they use are darts for shaping the bodice. They also had to gather the waist of the skirt into the bodice. And then we have more gathering for a ruffle on the bottom skirt. And they also gathered in the top of the sleeve. And then at the bottom of the sleeve, we have rows of shirring. And starting at the back, we have another covered button, and we have bias binding to cover this keyhole. And then when we move to the back waist, we have tons of shirring in here to create fit for the garment, which also has gathering at the top and the bottom of it. That's so many sewing skills that had to be used to create this dress for that price. Now let's turn it inside out and check out their stitching. Now you can see there's a ton of stitching in here. Let's go over it. So on the inside here, the collar is beautifully finished with the edge tucked under and edge stitched down. That's a great finishing technique. And then if we move over here to the shoulder, they've created a plain seam that is done on a serger called a 5-thread safety stitch. So if we take a look at it real close, you're going to be able to see that this right here that looks like a straight stitch is a chain stitch, and then the edges here are serged together. And for the sleeve, they've set this in by hand. It looks like they didn't use any specific gathering technique because you can see big gaps in here where it's inconsistent. And they've also used that 5-thread safety stitch to run that through the machine to sew it and serge it at the same time. They've used a plain straight stitch for the darts here. And then look at this, there's actually a pleat in here. I didn't see that from the outside. So we'll add that to the technique list. And these buttons here look like they've been hand sewn on. That's kind of crazy. And down here we have our ruffle attached with the 5-thread safety stitch again. And we do see that inconsistency in it, which makes me think that they're just feeding this through by hand and that they don't have a gathering attachment set up. And then down here for the hem, they've serged the edge and then they flipped it up once and stitched it down. So we have a single folded hem on the bottom of the ruffle. And here on the sleeve, they've used a chain stitch with elastic in the bottom to shore up the bottom of the sleeve. And when they put the elastic at the top of the sleeve, they just used a plain regular straight stitch. That one is not a chain stitch. And they've used the same type of stitching and technique for the shearing here on the back of the dress, and then the same here for attaching this elastic. And that is one heck of a wobbly straight stitch if I've ever seen one. And around the binding, they just used a regular straight stitch. So you can see there are a ton of different techniques that went into this dress and 3 major types of stitches to create it, using those stitches in a bunch of different ways to make this dress come together. But another component to creating a dress that takes time is how many pattern pieces you have. How many pattern pieces do you think this dress has? Go ahead and guess right now. I'll give you a second. It has 23 pieces. Isn't that crazy? 23 different pieces of fabric went into creating this dress, at least from what I can tell. Before I go over costing on what this garment should cost, let's go over the things I like and don't like about the dress. So I really don't like this shirring in the back. I think it makes the dress look cheap, and I think it makes you feel kind of poofy back here. This would be so much nicer if it was a tailored fitted back with a dart, and then you had a zipper either at center back or ideally a zipper at the underarm at side seam to give you a nice clean back. Still keeping the keyhole though, because that is a really nice detail there with the bias binding. So that is one feature I like, is the clean neckband with the bias binding. I think it's beautiful. I also love that it has covered buttons that match the dress. I think that is fantastic. And I also love that it is actually 2 layers of fabric. That's a lot of fabric there. So those I think are really nice features of this dress. But that shirring on the back, killing it for me. So let's go over what this dress should cost. So I've got experience in manufacturing here in America, so let's cost it out. And I'm pricing this out as if you were manufacturing this in America. So this dress takes about 2.5 yards of fabric. And if you're wholesaling some lightweight denim, it's probably gonna be around $7.50 a yard. Now, Shein might be getting this fabric for like 20 cents a yard because they're buying tens of thousands of yards of it. But no manufacturer here is really doing that. So there's about 2.5 yards of fabric in this dress, and the fabric's gonna cost about $7.50 a yard. So that's gonna give us $18.75 just in fabric. And then for notions on this dress, we've got buttons, we've got thread, and we've got some elastic. That's gonna be around $2, so not super expensive. And then we need to pay someone to cut out the fabric so that way we can send our pieces to manufacturing. Probably gonna take about 20 minutes to do some cutting on these big pieces. So it would cost around $8.50 in labor to cut out the dress. So now we need our cost for labor for manufacturing the actual garment. It's probably gonna take around 3 hours to do this dress from start to finish, passing it through many hands and many hours, ironing, etc. And don't forget, we have those 3 different stitches on there, which means it's going through 3 different types of sewing machines. And that's gonna cost about $75 if we're doing $25 an hour for labor costs. And that price at manufacturing is including the labor cost and the manufacturer's profit for actually creating the garment. So after we add all that together, we get $114.45. And that is what it costs just to make the garment. There is no profit there for you as the designer or the company selling the garment. So now we need to mark it up. 2.5 times, depends on the company. And that's an industry standard. 2 times what it costs to create is going to be your wholesale number. So the wholesale number on this garment is $286.12. So if you had a direct-to-consumer brand, that's what you would be selling it for, and that's exactly what Shein does. They are creating that garment and selling it directly to the consumer, because you're not buying Shein, let's say like Macy's. But if you have a garment you are wholesaling to a store, they are going to mark it up as well. And they're gonna mark it up another 2 to 5 times what they paid for it from you. This dress is gonna end up $715.31. Hello, Bloomingdale's. So after looking at all of those numbers, can you believe that I only paid $38 for this dress? Wasn't on sale either. That's just like the regular retail price that I paid. So first of all, this dress is direct to consumer. So the manufacturer is selling it, so you don't have that retail markup there. So that keeps the price lower. And that's why you see a lot of these direct to consumer companies popping up, because they can offer something less expensive. Because it doesn't have that retail markup, it allows them to be competitive in the marketplace. But even our direct-to-consumer price on this dress is so much more expensive than Shein was. $286.12 direct-to-consumer for this dress here in America. So you're probably wondering, why is there such a huge price difference? And as you've probably guessed, one of the major costs in this garment is the cost of manufacturing it. So the labor that goes into sewing it. So the labor that goes into sewing these in other countries is just so cheap that it can't even compete in the market here. And unfortunately, that usually involves some pretty unethical labor practices. And you can do some more research. There are tons of documentaries and articles about these labor practices. So I don't need to be the one to fill you in on that. If you're interested, take a Google. There's tons of it. And this is one reason I love thrifting and creating my own clothing, because I feel good knowing that I am not contributing to that. And another reason these clothes are so cheap is because they're made out of cheap fabrics, and then they fall apart really quick, and then they end up in the landfill. And some of them aren't even good enough to put in a thrift store. But I know when I go thrifting, I see Shein clothes all the time, or Forever 21. And you might be like, Anastasia, you just bought a Shein dress. What are you doing? Well, I bought it because I really wanted to go over this with you guys and give you a little insight. I think it's really important to be aware of this, so that way you can be an educated consumer and hopefully just start making all of your clothing. Or thrifting or upcycling, these are great ways to have an amazing ethical wardrobe. So I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad here. I know some of us have really limited options, but When that Shein dress is following you around on the internet, I want you to think twice. Thank you so much for watching Sewing Anastasia today. If you have any questions about this or you have some personal thoughts, leave it down below in the comments. I would love to read it. And I know this is a controversial subject, so it's okay. Just let it rain. So if you enjoyed the video today, make sure you like and subscribe to Sewing Anastasia and hit that notification bell so you know when the new videos come out. And I would love to know what other kind of topics or techniques and sewing projects would you like to explore this year. Leave that down below in the comments as well. And if you'd like to learn more about sewing, make sure you check out my online sewing classes and my in-person sewing classes. And don't forget the sewing club, it's really fun. I put out a new pattern every month with all the tutorials and pattern hacks. And if you want to know what's going on in the studio, well, make sure you follow me on Instagram and check out the Instagram stories. Thanks so much for watching today. Bye.